Hello. You cool if I get some water real quick?
No way, water's not okay. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Yeah, you guys go.
All right, cool. You know what they say, hydrate or dihydrate?
I did not know they say that. Don't forget to put your numbers, guys. Cheers. Cheers, mate. Is my virtual background backwards to you guys?
No, it looks good.
Like, for example, you see how it says limit f prime of x equals lim.
What is the definition of the derivative doing on your background, my friend?
See? Don't be showboating, Ethan.
It's like I spent weeks doing that crap in Calc 1, and it's like the power rule exists, and yet you force me to do it this way.
Struggle.
Yeah.
It's so true, though. And there was like always those people in class. A lot of the times there's like dual enrollment kids, and they're like, oh, you can do it this way. It's a little hacky. You just do the 3 minus 1s, put it up front.
Mm-hmm.
All
Not
right,
the real
1, 2, 3.
Oh wait, I got my number on.
Ethan, got to use the power rule, man. 1,
no,
2, 3.
The real power move is you solve the definition of the derivative problem with L'Hopital's rule.
Oh yeah, L'Hopital. 4, 5, 6, 7.
I just remember doing this one derivative thing with the squeeze theorem. I don't remember what the squeeze theorem was, but I just remember the names. I thought it was really funny because, like, you have these functions sandwiched between each other, but you literally call it the squeeze. Like,
Yeah.
It's not named after anyone's.
I mean, but honestly, in my opinion, that's actually one of the better names because it literally is what is happening. You know, it actually describes the process. L'Hopital, that doesn't tell me anything about what we're doing. Just this confusing name. You guys ready for action?
Yeah, dude, I'm ready to rumble.
Okay. You guys really got to up your GIF content because I'm looking for some quality content in the random.
Oh, actually, I got something for you. I didn't want to post it during lecture, but I found something good.
No, you can always post it anytime.
All right, I would just feel bad because then y'all would be like, "Oh, this dude's just looking at memes during lecture." You know, wait, I just outed myself. But no, the UCF AI chat has a really good meme channel. So
yeah, that's where I got a lot of my content from. Is Brandon Silva.
Yeah.
All right.
That and like the UCF CECS chat has a has a fantastic meme channel.
Really?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I know. I only use that server for 2 things: the CS1 chat and the memes.
Hey, did you guys see me change my virtual background to a party when Dr. Lobo was like, "Don't be partying"? You think that's
no? I noticed that when he talked about, oh yeah, this is like no. I noticed that when he was talking about, oh yeah, we dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. I saw your background change to a party, and I'm like, no.
That was a fail. All right, let's do some Python. So Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Noise.
Intro to Snake.
Yep.
Alrighty.
I watched this movie, Anaconda. Michael, do you remember that movie, Anaconda?
Yeah, the first one and the second one.
Man, come on. Jennifer Lopez, that's like her debut.
Right.
Oh, man. All right, so we're going to need that, and we're going to need something else. Let's minimize. Don't need that. Look, mine says base too. Interesting, right?
Based.
Drop the base. It's very strange.
I guess it's just the default environment. So
No, not that. Oh, let's see what you got, you. I feel some quality content coming. I'm done with you. Oh my god. Yes.
are you just gonna miss my meme above?
Oh my god. Was yours the one with the tiny little picture on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the external monitor I'm using is low res, so I couldn't really see
Oh
it.
shoot. No, like if you click on it, should show you the whole thing. It's one of those like scientific research paper memes where it's like, oh, these are the types of papers in this field, and there's only one, and this is about computer vision, and it's like the title is "Our results are 0.1% better than the last papers,"
That's true.
or like than this other paper's result. It's like, all right.
God, I wish that was funny. It's actually so true it hurts.
Ouch.
All
There's
right,
one in
what am I doing here? Ethan, you're distracting me. CD, change directory into, let's do this. All right, CD. Desktop, UCF. CD Lobo. CD CRCV. Lobo. RU. RU 2020. Lecture files.
Wouldn't it be 2021?
2021.
It would not.
Oh.
Me. All right, this is what I want. And then let's do Jupyter. I know what it is. I'm using a new shell. That's why. Let's do source activate. What was it? RU 2021?
You have to use Conda.
Oh, I don't think that's it.
Maybe it's because you dropped the base.
Oh, I dropped the base. All right. There we go. Conda did work. Let's do Conda list, make sure we're in the right place. Got all of our stuff. Yeah, I updated my shell from TensorFlow. Okay, yeah, this is good. Okay. All right, so now let's do Jupyter.
Wait, quick question.
Yeah, I'm listening.
So what I have is that now I have 2 Anaconda prompts, and one has Anaconda 3 in parentheses after it, and one of them has REU 2021 after it.
One of them will probably be for the base environment, and for the REU one, you'll probably want to use that.
Okay.
Okay, so onward and upward, friends. Introduction to Python. So today what we're going to do is as much Python as we possibly can. I am a big advocate of the idea that you need some basics along the way, and the rest of the stuff you can Google when you need it. Not to mention the fact that you need to know some things exist, but you may not need to remember how they happen, you know, because you just know that it can happen, and then you can Google it when you need it, right? So before you ever ask anybody about anything, always Google it, right? It's, I'd say, solid life advice. All right, so who hadn't written in any? I know some of you hadn't written in Python at all before you started. Who was that? Was that you, Ethan?
Well, like the only Python I've done is with computer vision stuff. So it's
that's
like,
what it was. Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
Okay, so that's okay. So it's a lot of times it's easier for people who don't know any Python. So for those of you, I'm sure most of you have written in other languages at some point, whether you know them now or not, it's kind of irrelevant. But the point is that Python's beautiful. It's easy to learn. The syntax is straightforward. It's very intuitive. And a lot of the hot jobs right now, especially to do with AI and computer vision, are using Python. So it's a good skill to have, and it's pretty easy to learn. So, you know, we've kind of installed all that stuff from yesterday, right? So you don't really need a lot of this stuff. On Mac and Linux machines, it's going to be on there already. And one thing I do want to say is that you don't want to uninstall your Mac version of Python. So that can really mess things up, which is why we use virtual environments, so that can make things a lot easier. Anytime you're ever in a shell here, let's see if I can find mine. Where dost thou go? So let me open. So I'm going to do command for all of my Mac users. Command T to open a new tab here. Okay. All right. And what I'm going to do from here is just type in, and you don't even have to be in the base. I mean, you can just kind of deactivate this. All right. You don't have to be in the base. You can just type in Python and see what happens. Right. So you'll notice here by default, this comes with Apple, okay, 2.7. This is on your machine. You never want to uninstall this version of Python. So let's quit this. So this is called an interactive session, interactive Python session, okay? So from here, and I'm sure you can do this in the Anaconda prompt as well, right? Somebody want to test that out for me and tell us real quick? Just type Python, see what happens.
Yeah, the same thing comes up for me.
Awesome, yep. Thank you, Brian. So, so before I deactivated my base, obviously I would have been given, I was in my base environment, which means I was using Anaconda, right? However, now that I'm outside of that, what I'm doing has nothing to do with Anaconda. So the point being that I can either use, by typing Python like I just did, Python, I'm going to get Python 2.7, or I can type Python 3, and in that case I get Python 3.8.2, okay? So these are default on the Mac machine. Linux, I'm not entirely sure. Windows, no, but Anaconda prompts, you're going to have your base. So for example, here, I'm in my base, so this should apply for everybody. If I type in Python here, you'll notice that it automatically defaults to 3.8, right? That's because we installed Anaconda 3, which means Python 3. So when you type in Python, it just defaults to Python 3. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, so you can type in Python here. So you can type in, for example, anything you want. You can say x equals, let's do a string, hello world, right? Enter. Now I want to do prints x, right? Hello world, right? So this is another place where you can kind of, so we call it interactive because we're doing it a single line at a time. And this can kind of replace Jupyter notebooks in a way. Like you don't really have to go and run an entire Jupyter notebook, et cetera, et cetera. If you just want to test something out, like for example, you want to know print does x, the current x we've defined above, equal 10, right? Is that true or not? I want to know, do I use 2 equal signs or 1 equal sign? This is just a quick little test because I can't remember, right? No, it doesn't. Okay, now let's just try and see what happens if I do this. X equals 10. Let's see what happens. Right, so, oh, okay, that's not right. Right, I've redefined X inside of, let's see what happens now. Okay. Anyway, so this is not super important, but Command W closes the window for all of my Mac users. Okay, so and in order to exit that interactive mode, you can either type in quit, open close parenthesis, or exit, open close. Okay. Python files are always going to have .py as their extension, right? Let's see. Oh yeah, this is pretty good too. I like this little link here. Like for example, if you ever just want to do some stuff like kind of on the fly, I like this website. It's called Replit. And you can actually choose the languages over here. It has a lot of options, right?
Yeah.
Lua. Have you guys used this before?
Yeah, I use it for my algorithms class a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. And you know, it's just a browser. You just can run stuff like this. There you go. Boom. Hello world, right? Let's try something else. Let's try some Go.
I've used it once. It's really handy when you're trying to figure out how to use different type of code that you've never used before.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I mean, even this, look, like it just shows me some basic Go. Oh, okay, cool. Hello world. Hello. So it's a nice little little online editor.
Yeah, I use it when I had like code that took a lot of time to run and I couldn't afford to test on it, so I started testing on that.
Good show. Okay, so there you go. Jupyter notebooks, we know about that. We talked about it yesterday. And Google Colab notebooks. That's that. So, all right, let me see. Python basics here. Indentation. So no braces to indicate blocks of code, for example. So you can see here, this if statement is just the body of the if statement is just indicated by a tab instead of like open and close braces. So why don't you guys send me one more time in the chat, because I want to get a better idea. Send me on a 1 to 10 what your proficiency is with Python. Just shoot me a quick Chu. I remember you said 10, so I don't need you to say yours again.
So I guess indentation is the same thing as like curly brace level.
Yeah. In
Okay.
other languages. Robert Lake coming out with an 8, bro.
Yeah, I had a whole class on this.
Nice. All right, so I'm gonna let you take over from here, okay?
No,
No, I'm just playing. All right, that's good. Okay, everybody, thank you for your a lot of 3s. That's perfect. Good. So, so the point of this discussion here is, actually, let me edit this real quick. My kids are playing a harmonica in the background. If you guys can hear that, tell me. I'll ask them to tone it down a little bit. Hey, did you guys see my puppy this morning?
I did.
Yeah, I saw it.
Very cute.
He gets it from me.
So humble.
That's my middle name. Thanks. All right, here we go. Okay, good. So quotations to represent strings. So you saw this yesterday. Single, double, triple. You can actually even you see how I have the single quotes here, and then you can use double quotes. I told you guys yesterday I'm a single quotes kind of guy. And the reason is because in my personal experience, for example, when you use the subsystem package inside of Python, you're going to need to send lines to the terminal or to the shell, right? And those are going to be housed inside of double brackets sometimes, or single. And so sometimes you'll need to use the doubles on the out. So my point is this: you'll need to use the double quotes for other purposes. So I like to reserve single quotes for strings, right? So we have stringling 1, stringling 2, and then stringling a ding dong is number 3, and that has triple quotes here. You can see it works just, the same way. Down here, you can actually use comment blocks by, and these are actually called like doc strings, I guess. That's what they call them. Is that right? Do you guys remember doc strings?
Sounds like it.
That's a shout out to Robert and Chu. You guys are my backup on this.
Yeah. The syntax of it after being in C++ is so weird to look at, though.
God, I hate C++.
Yeah.
It's terrible. So anyways, yeah, okay. So let me make sure we have.
I don't know. I don't really. Oh, I guess I don't generally like doc strings. I just put a bunch of hashtags there. So yeah.
Yeah, especially because most editors will, like, if you highlight it and hit Control/, will do line comments for all those. So
let's switch these here. So I've actually included the Python notebook to what we're going to do today here. So you can actually go and do this. I didn't include it in the lecture files, but it is in the preparation. So if you guys go into preparation, you should be able to find the IPYNB, the interactive Python notebook. Okay, so we can just run these here. So let's run this. So do you guys recall yesterday we did Shift Enter to run a cell? I don't need no braces. I'm a big kid now. Inside of these Jupyter notebooks is just a little fun fact here, right? So we can actually write in Markdown. So you can define these cells for, let me see here. Cell, right? Cell type. And you can actually do code. You can do it in Markdown, or you can do it in raw and be convert, whatever that is. Who knows? Don't use it, so don't need it. Okay. Moving right along. So user input. That's another thing you can do. Here. So basically you can ask the user for input. So let's just take a look and see what happens here. And this changed from Python 2 to Python 3. It used to be something else. So for example, how many pet cats do you own? Michael, you want to weigh in on this one? We'll say you own them, okay?
It'd be 3.
It goes 3, right? Okay, let's do that. All right, so then we just have basic arithmetic from here, right? So is everybody good on this user input, on how this works, right? Pretty straightforward, nothing too advanced here. And then we're going to do some basic arithmetic. So a couple things that I haven't said that I did here is, first of all, I'm defining these variables. So first of all, I've defined x as 3, y is 2, and I've defined the word this, which is actually going to be a variable for us, as 5.0. So in other words, I've defined these as ints, ints, and I've defined this as a float, right? So in other words, I don't have to specify the type. I can actually just define it as it needs to be.
With Python, that can change. The script can change it if it wants to, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, this could start as a float, right? So let's try it. So let's do here. Let's insert a cell below, right? So here you can see that this is equal to 5.0, right? So in other words, it's a float, right? But let's say I want to say this is equal to int of this, okay? Well, we know that in other languages that wouldn't work, so let's try it here. Oh, sorry, I have to run this first. There we go. Print the type, okay? And we can see now that this is an int, not a float anymore, right? So that's not always been true for some of the other things you've done before. So addition is just going to be straight up plus like this. Subtraction minus absolute value, you're just going to say abs out front. Multiplication is star, divisions // exponential is 2 stars. If you want to change, oh, actually I have it here. Thank you to my past self. Here we want to take a float to an integer. We can do that. Here we can take an integer to a float, so you can go either way. You can round by using this command, round, and it's always going to round up to the nearest integer. That's important. By specifying int, for example, if we have y divided by x, so y divided by x is 2 divided by 3, right? So 2/3. So in other words, y divided by x is going to be 2/3, and then if I round, it's going to go up to the nearest integer, so I'm going to have 1. Is everybody good with that? But then if I say integer of 2/3, it's always going to go round down to the nearest integer, okay? So be careful if you ever use integer, int, you convert something to an int. If it's currently a fraction or some fractional value, like not a whole number, then it's going to round down. So it basically just chops all that stuff off. It's floor function. And then you can also, with the round function, you can select the number of places that you want to round to. So for example, where we had 2/3, which we know is 0.6 is forever repeating, you can actually select the number of the decimal places that you want. Okay.
Quick question.
Sure.
So if you just do x divided by y,
yep.
And let's say, oh wait, let me actually look at that real quick back on the notebook. Let's see. Oh, okay, so it does do automatic. Never mind, I somehow missed that. Okay, so it automatically will like promote it to a float if it needs to, so it doesn't lose precision, I guess.
Promote meaning like promote what? 2/3?
No, as in like, so if you do if you say like x is 3 and y is 2, those are integers, and if you do integer division, that will just be 1. But I see there it says x divided by y, that's 1.5, so it kind of promotes the value to a.
Well, be careful because actually integer division here, like for example in this right here, where I have int,
well, yeah, that's
it actually is 0.
Right.
Not 1. Because it
okay.
actually.
I thought that was x over y. My bad. So.
Yeah, so it rounds it down. But you're correct. Yes.
Okay.
Integers divided by integers can become a float on its own.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Any questions so far? Brian, how you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good so far.
Nice. All right, data structures. So we have lists. That's our first. It's the most straightforward. It's the easiest to work with. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to define a list we're going to define a list comprised entirely of just strings. So I have A, B, C. Then we're going to define a list comprised solely. Go ahead, Zane.
Is this list like the linked list, or is it totally a different thing?
If I haven't answered your question by the end of this slide, ask it again.
Yeah, it's because I see it as like a regular array with different functions.
Yeah, it's just an array, I think. It's not like a linked list in C++.
No. Yeah,
They call it a list in Python, but it's equivalent to an array in other languages.
that is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So you good?
Yes.
Okay. And then we're going to define numbers, which is just a sequence of integers. And then we're going to do a mixed list, which is an integer, a float, and a string. But in this case, I'm going to define my string with double quotes. Even though I don't like those, I just want to show you that it's possible. Okay. \n creates a new line. I'm sure most of you already know that, but in the event you didn't, the way you're going to use that, for example, is so we have these print statements. And here I'm going to have, I want to print out in the end, numbers length is 3, right? So numbers, there are 3 elements inside of that. So numbers length, and then I'm going to say the length, len, is how you actually return the length of a list, or in this case, the array. And then comma, here I'm going to actually put this \n out front of numbers type. So I'm going to go to a new line. Now, what you could do instead is a whole new print statement on the next line. So for example, I could just write print right down here and start with this stuff here without needing this \n. But I wanted to do it in a single line. So \n numbers type here. So the point of this line here is to show you, first of all, how to print things like this, but you can also have the length command and the type, which are both built in. Okay. Everybody good with that? Okay. Lists are mutable, which means we can update their values along the way. So to me, the word mutable sounds super fancy, but really, if you just think about it like at its derivative level, it's basically mutation, right? Mutable, mutation. So in other words, we can change it. It can be mutated, like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. So here you have print, numbers before mutations, and then we're going to put numbers here. So this is before the mutations. We have 2, 3, 5. Now, in order to change one of the values of the list numbers, which is currently 2, 3, 5, we would like to replace. So what's going to happen here? Sanjay, you want to weigh in on this? What you think is going to happen here? Any idea?
The last element is going to be updated to 6.
Exactly right. So in other words, what I'm using this position for is indexing. In other words, when he says the last, so this would be considered the 0th element, this would be considered the first element, and this would be considered the second element, right? So remember, indexing is always going to begin with 0. So when I use these square brackets here, directly following a list, what I'm doing is indexing into that list. And in this case, when I index into the 3rd position, I'm going to redefine it as a 6. So my numbers list after mutations now is going to be 2, 3, 6. Any questions here?
How does Python, or how do lists work with, like, I guess, invalid indices? Like if you say numbers sub 5 equals some value, does it automatically expand the list?
Let's see where we are here. So what do you want me to do?
Like numbers sub 5 equals like 10 or something.
5?
Yeah, so that's like clearly like invalid index because it only has 3, right?
Meow. Oh, sorry, I need to run this. Numbers.
Out of bounds. Okay. So if you have to like manually expand it, I guess.
But keep in mind, this is the out of bounds business is there are some caveats to that statement. Okay. But
okay,
in this case, when you index with a single value into a single position, then it's going to give you an out of bounds or out of range error. But that's not always true. I'll show you in a minute what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Okay, so keep in mind our list that we were working with was numbers, right? And it was 2, 3, 6. Now what we want to do is I want to add a single value onto the end of that list. And so I'm going to say numbers.append 7. Now, when it comes to append and extend, there are a million different little special rules. For example, I think like if you type in extend with a single value, it throws back an error or whatever. In my personal opinion, if you go to get a job, they may ask you those kind of questions. But the point is this: I think you need to understand that append and extend exist. If you ever want to know the true nature of a specific case of how they work, you'll learn that over time. But if you don't know it off the top of your head, just hop over to a Jupyter notebook or an interactive Python session and just try it real quick. It'll take less than a minute to find out exactly what's supposed to happen, right? So there's a couple things that you can remember. So here we're going to append the number 7 to our list. So 2, 3, 6, we're going to have 7 here. Now we also want to append a string to our list. So we're going to add this Z to the end of it here. And then let's go back and look at what letters was. Letters is the strings ABC, right? So what I want to do now, so I have this list, 2, 3, 6, 7, and Z. I want to append a list to my list, okay? So notice when you use append, it actually puts the list inside of the list as the last value of your list. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so it's going to insert the entire list here. However, if you wanted instead to, let me see if I can get a laser pointer going here. Here we go. Okay. So if you wanted these items to be put into the list itself instead of actually inserting a list. So here, for example, what you're going to use is something called extend. So numbers.extend, if you'll notice how I've put in mixed, keep in mind mixed was 4, 5.1 in seconds, right? Notice the difference. It actually inserts these elements into the list instead of putting a list into my list itself. Does everybody feel comfortable with that?
Oh, yes, I heard something interesting to test out. What if mixed had a list inside the list? Would it also extend that one?
Listception. Let's try it. I think I can just run from here. Okay, now you want me to, you're saying what if mixed had a list inside of it?
Yeah, a list inside a list.
Okay, so let's make mixed, let's make mixed 2, okay? And I'm gonna make a list, but inside of this, let's put in 3, 6.1, and then let's put in 1, 2, 5.0. How about that? Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what if you were just trolling me and then like you guys like ganged up on me and you said that, and then the next person asked a question and they're like, but what if that list had a list inside of it? And then like you kept going around and I like it.
It's like
Okay. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to take numbers. And do you want to extend or append?
Extend.
Extend, okay. Extend. And you want to do mix 2, right?
Yep.
All right. Yeah?
Yes. then
Yep.
extend.
So it doesn't extend, it just extends, right? So whatever's in there, it takes that and puts it into your list. Okay. Okay. Onward and upward. Let me see here. Sorry, I was thinking about something else. Okay, back to business. So, indexing with lists, right? So we talked about it a little bit already. So of course, the first value when we're indexing, the first value is always going to be 0. So we want to index into the first position. You're going to use an index of 0, right? In a print statement, if I actually want to print a comma, then I'm going to use quote, single quote. And then here, when I type in 4, actually what I'm doing is I'm accessing the 5th element of the list. Does everybody feel okay about that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now when I type in numbers here and I want to access the 5th element of numbers, let's see what it is. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th element of numbers is a list itself. Okay. So you can see this actually ends up returning a list here. So this is why it's important to know, like, for example, the difference between append and extend, because in order to get the single value B, we actually have to index into a list that we've already indexed the list out of. Now, obviously, I'm just saying list a lot to make it sound more confusing than it really is. But the point is that when you indexed into the 5th position, you got a list. So to get B, you have to index inside of that list 0, 1 into the first position, and this returns B itself. Does that make sense to everybody? This is why the difference between append and extend is important, because sometimes if you have a list inside of a list, then you may have to use double or even triple indexing to get out what you're looking for. Actually, I don't think I've ever had to do triple indexing, so that would be rare, but double is very common. Now, we also have this idea of negative indexing, right? And so I'll start to touch on that here. But the point is that by using a value of -1, you start at the last position of your list and you move your way backwards in this direction, okay? So by using 0, you start here. By using -1, you say, whatever the last element of my list is, return that to me. Now, this is helpful because you may not know how long your list actually is. So you can't index, let's say your list is 100 elements long, right? Then you could just index using the 99th index. You want the last one, but sometimes you don't actually know how long your list is. So what you're going to do instead is you're going to just type in -1, and that's going to give you the last one. Now, this is good for 2 reasons. Number one, if you don't know the length of your list, then that's problematic. But if you were to first calculate the length of your list, and then you were to use that index to get the last element of that list, that is computationally unwise, right? Because if you can just use the -1, then it's just going to give you the last element without having to compute the length first. Just let the built-in stuff do its trick. Okay. Questions about this? Leah, how you feeling? Leah?
Can I make a comment?
Make a comment, please. Yes.
It's about the print. So the print, I know this is a little off topic, but the print, it always has the new line, like the /n, how it makes a new line every time. There's not really a nice way of getting rid of that. There's ways that you can look up on Google if you want to do it without it, but it's a little bit ugly. And then the numbers, how you have the comma and then the quotes and then the comma and the comma. You can do that similar as Java with the pluses. So if you're more familiar with like Java, then it actually works that way.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah. And then like
for future generations, I'm going to add that in. Okay.
But I'm sure you'll go over other stuff that I wanted to talk about, so I'll let you do it.
Oh wait, is that actually equivalent?
Yeah.
Really? Huh.
Oh, you have to make it a stir.
Guess it's not.
They both have to be the same type.
This is equivalent.
Yeah, it's because the plus, the comma, the string, all of them. So all of them have to be strings.
So I guess it's actually not equivalent because I wanted space here. There we go. There we go. That's better. Slicing. Yeah, this is interesting. Okay. So for example, let's say we have this numbers list here, right? 2, 3, 6, 7, Z, ABC, 4, 5.1 in seconds, right? So to return the first element to the last element, in other words, if I want to inclusively include elements, so for example here, so I want to return, keep in mind, this is the fourth element, and when I do a single colon like this, and there's nothing afterwards, it's going to return everything to the end. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to start at 7. You can see your 7 right here. And when I have colon with nothing after it, it's going to return everything else to the end. Does everybody feel okay about that? Now, if I wanted to return the beginning to some point instead of going from some point to the end, so I want to go beginning to some point, this is going to start at the very beginning of my list. So 0, 1, 2, but look what we have here, 2, 3, 6, right? So in other words, in this case, it's always going to be this element from my list, but here it's -1. So in other words, it's not going to be to the fourth element. It's going to be to the 4 minus 1. So it's actually going to return 2, 3, 6. So this direction is exclusive, and then this direction is inclusive. Does that feel okay to everybody? Joe, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
You good? Are we disturbing the person in the back?
No, that it's fine.
The sleeping person? Okay. So then if we wanted to print numbers here, for example, so we're going to do, I want the first indexed element. So I want the second element 2. So I'm going to start at 0, 1. I'm going to do 3. But remember here, normally this would be the fourth element, right? But now it's going to be 4 minus 1. So this side is inclusive. This side is exclusive. Does everybody understand what I'm saying here? Yeah? Okay. The first returns a list with one element. The second only returns the element itself. Yeah, this is just kind of like some little syntactical magic, I guess you could say. But it's important to note, for example, let's say you actually needed to use this string and not a list with a string in it, right? So you wanted to actually use this string somewhere. Then the way you actually index these things can be important. So for example, I told you before, when you index using just a minus value, then you're going to get seconds here, okay? However, if you index, now this has to do with negative indexing, which I think is the next slide. Let me see. Nope, wrong. Maybe it's later. I don't know where it is, but anyways, we'll come back to it. So here, when I start with the -1, so I'm going to start to the end of the list, and I'm going to go to the end of the list, right? So these are just weird little things that you probably won't have to do, but they're here. You can play around with this stuff if you want to look at it. But notice the point is that when I use this slicing in this way, I'm returning a list, right? Slicing is returning a list. Okay. So for example, here, another way we can use those negative indices is like this. So numbers, I want to index numbers from the second element 0, 1, 2, from 6 to -1. -1 is the last element. So you would think, oh, well, it's going to go to seconds. But remember that this position is exclusive. Does that make sense? So it's actually not going to go to the last element. -1 is the last element. It's going to go to the -2th element, which is not a word, of course, but that's how we're going to say it, -2. So it's going to go to 5.1 instead of going down to seconds. Okay. Just some weird little tricks here. And you can also index in this way, for example, from the -4th element to the -1th element, right? So -1, -2, -3, -4.
Why couldn't I just use -0 and keep it the same?
Yeah, exactly right. Why do they have to do -1? I've always wondered that. It kind of does bother me, actually. Anybody have any good input as to why they wouldn't do that?
Because -0 would be too annoying to process.
Probably right.
Or like, actually, wait, if you start
Well,
your
because-
index at 0, like if you're iterating through an index, right? Or iterating through a list, and you start your index at 0 and you're doing some calculation that determines the index and it's negative for some reason, you might accidentally return the last element instead of the first one, maybe.
I got an idea, actually.
I mean,
Hit
I
me.
think if they had -0, they would have to process it as a string because that's not a number.
I mean, you can represent -0 using sign and magnitude.
Okay,
I think
if-
the
if-
biggest reason, why they'd want to do it that way is if you're in like a for loop and like you're doing the normal logic of a for loop, how you start at 0 and go to whatever,
Yeah.
then it keeps it, the same.
All right, here's what I'm going to throw out. Here's what I'm thinking. Because if you start from the left side, you get 0, right? And in slicing, the left side is always inclusive, so you would do 0. But if you start from the right side, it's exclusive, so it needs to be backwards 1. So it wouldn't start at 0, it would be -1, because -1 is that actual element instead of the -0th, which is just more of a reference.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
That's what you were saying?
A little more detailed, yeah.
Next time you say right answer, I'm gonna say that's what I was thinking too. I'll be like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. No, I'm just messing with you, dude. Oh yeah. So okay, to answer your question, or to return to your question, Ethan, from earlier, where you asked me about trying to index into a position that's out of range, right? It's important to note this. So a lot of this stuff, I don't really think you need to remember. You can just remember negative slicing exists and Google it when you need it, right? But I don't think that, okay.
So I actually have a question.
Yeah.
In some code that I've seen before, they used a comma instead. And I believe it worked just the same way, but it threw me off so bad. Do you know anything about that?
We'll come
Instead
back.
of
Let's come back to that in a minute.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the different show. So here, my point is this. So Ethan, you asked me if you go to a specific location that's out of bounds, then we returned an error, right? But in slicing, the case of slicing, we want the third element to the 10,000th element. Well, we know that there's no 10,000, there's not even a 10th element, right? But the point is that when you use slicing, it will not return an error. It will continue past that point until whatever, but there's actually not going to be anything additional returned, but it will not return an error. Okay, so this is one that you do need to memorize because this one can mess you up.
Okay, so if the upper bound, it's like the only case where it's safe to go out of bounds on the index is the upper bound, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean this could just, you could go over a loop here, and I mean but that's kind of the idea. And there's nothing being returned, but it's not going to return an error either. In some cases, personally, a lot of people hate this feature. I like it. it's come in handy at certain points. But some people may not like it. So, all right. So let me see what's next here. All right. So we'll pick up here. Let's take a break. Oh, it's 1 o'clock now. I'll see you guys back at, you want to say 2 o'clock? Okay.
Works for me.
Cool. I'm gonna pause the recording here, and if you would please, I'm actually gonna stop my sharing. Remind me to resume recording when we come back. Okay. Don't let me forget. Okay. Leah, I'm
Are we
counting.
coming back to the same room?
What's that?
Are we coming to the same room when we come back?
Same room. Yeah, same room.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Bye. Sanjay. Did you guys eat lunch?
I did. Good.
Nice. Robert, what are you eating?
Some green beans.
Nice. What'd you guys have? I went to Firehouse.
Chick-fil-A.
Nice.
Some Lebanese food.
You know me a bit too well, Chick-fil-A.
Tayeb. So let's see. What number are you, Robert?
I'm
I will
3. I
say
gotta
that-
put it back again.
You guys are actually doing better. Brian, don't forget to put your number, doing better than people did last year with their numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, 5. Who's 5? 2. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I think we're missing 2. I'm going to start without her. She said she's a 10 out of 10. So, anything interesting to tell me before we begin?
I finished 3D printing a stand for something, so I'm happy about that. So.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
How much did the printer that you have cost?
I think when I got it, it was like 400, but now you can get the same printer for like 250 or something.
That's pretty cool, man. And the filament is reasonably priced.
It's dirt cheap, like for how much I get out of it. So.
And so, do you use Inventor or?
I started with Inventor, but the stand I just showed you and a lot of other things, I just go on Thingiverse and print that. There are some things that I do CAD and design by hand.
Yeah.
Like, for example, this desk is actually kind of wobbly at this height, so I designed rails that go on the wall for it.
Huh.
And I also, let's see what else, fixed the handle on the dishwasher in the kitchen broke.
Get out of here.
So yeah, no, so I just like modeled the hell out of the little piece, made a couple iterations, and then after you spray paint it, you can't even tell that it's like a 3D printed part that an amateur made. So
that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. I know, I like it just because like you can kind of like pirate real life things. Like, for example, I have a pop socket on my phone that I got for free, right?
Yeah.
If you want the official pop socket car stand, it's like $10, but there are like plenty of them on Thingiverse, so I just made one and it costs like 50 cents to make.
And does it actually pop up?
Well, no, like the pop socket isn't what I made. Like, this is a real pop socket. What I made is a stand that goes in the car. Like, it's just this little adhesive.
Oh, I see.
So like I can just like slide my phone on my dash and it just stays there.
That's pretty sweet though, man.
Yeah. And then like every once in a while I'll take like commissions from people. Like if someone's like, oh yeah, I want you to print this for me or whatever, I'll do that.
Okay, I need you to print something. I'll send you a chat, but just an idea. I need something. It's like a shiv, basically. It's not going to go off in any metal detectors. I can't say any more right now, but I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool, man. I'll definitely. I'm going to ask you more about that one day.
All right. Yeah. No, believe it or not, I actually like bought it because remember a couple of years ago, like the fidget spinner craze.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, that's why I have it. because I was actually competing with someone at high school who was doing the same thing and drove him out of business. So
Cool, man. All right, so
But
let's
yeah.
jump back in. You guys ready? Chu, I seriously contemplated, like from the okay, so last year, here, let me share my screen and show you if I can see. Last year, okay, so like what we eventually we start taking pictures and stuff like this, right? Oh, this is the GIF I made, right?
oh my gosh.
It's cool, right? Like I take a bunch of pictures and then I like make a GIF out of it or whatever. You know, we posted stuff on the website. So, but I seriously, Chew, from day one, I was thinking of like screenshotting you eating and like making a GIF over the entire summer of like you just eating different plates of food and giving it to you as your gift. But all right,
That's one of the more interesting gift proposals I've heard of out there.
yeah, because I love making the GIFs. They're awesome. All right, so let's jump in. So I do want to, I was thinking about something that you asked me, Michael, about the commas and indexing. And that's not what I wanted to talk about, but I do want to show you an example that I don't have included here. It has to do with splicing. So let me add in a little insert cell below here. So let's do a new list. Oops. By the way, in general, if you want to say something is Python syntactically correct, you say it's Pythonic, okay? So for example, the Pythonic method of doing variables is typically an underscore, not camel case. So you know camel case? It's like where you do upper and then lower and then, you know, that's a camel case, right?
Well, wait, wouldn't the first letter be lowercase and then like lowercase n?
Like that?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not actually sure exactly what
It depends.
the true rule is.
It really depends. If you're in Java and you're doing something that's a class, then you capitalize the first letter. If it's not, then you don't.
So it doesn't really matter either way because it's not what we're doing here. There is some other thing it has to do with camels, and this ain't it. So we just do underscores here. Let's do so you can define lists this way, right? And I'm going to do range. You can, when you do range, for example, here, you can say like, what's a starting number, Leah?
I don't know, 5.
5, good, perfect, thank you. And then you can do something like, you can go to whatever you want, you know, let's say 20 to 25. But then here in the last position in range, you can actually specify like, hey, I want to jump by 5s, right? So this is just an additional little, little trickety-doo-dah. So print. Okay, so you can see how it jumps by 5s, right? The one thing I do want to point out is that when you use range, as was the case with slicing, the first element is inclusive, which means you're going to get that one. The second element is you're saying start here, go to here. By the way, nobody reminded me to restart the recording. Did you guys not remind me because you noticed I already did it? Just say yeah, because I mean,
Yeah,
nobody's ever going to know now. You know, you can just say yeah. Tess, thank you for your honesty, though. I see you. So you're going to do 5 to 25, but notice how 25 is not included down here, right? I'm jumping by 5s, but the last element is exclusive. And this is going to say jump by 5s. Everybody good with this? Now, instead of putting the 5 there, let's do this, right? And then what I'm going to do, yeah, that's not what I want. Now let's do print new list. But what I want to do now is I want to show you slicing. So the true definition for slicing works like this: start, finish plus, this is finish plus 1, finish plus 1, and this is the skip. Okay, the last element means you skip by. Okay, so for example, if I wanted to now return the list again, so I'm going to start at 5, I'm going to go to 25 exclusively, and I want to skip 5s. Okay. Interesting. So this is a good little strange case here that I actually didn't know about. But notice how it doesn't include the 5 here. It's rather suspicious. Doesn't that seem like a strange case to you guys?
That's because you started at index 5.
Oh my God, thank you. Wow, amateur hour. So anyways, yeah, you guys get the point though here, right? I'm so busy thinking about range that I'm not thinking about the correct thing. Here we go. Oh my God.
Certified bra moment.
For real. Anyways, but this is the point, is that you can take that list, whatever it is, and you can use double colons like this. Okay, that's the whole point I wanted to make here, right? So double colons, if you don't see anything there, it means just beginning to end, jump by 5s, right? So that's it, right? So if you ever see double colons, that was the whole point of this discussion, okay? All right, moving on. All right, list comprehensions. So to me, there's like 2 things that are my favorite in Python, one of which is dictionaries. It's my favorite data structure. And then I also think that list comprehensions are super cool. Simply because they can take tons of lines of code and they can minimize it down to almost nothing. So let's take a look at here. So let's say I give you, this is the general form for a list comprehension, but I'm going to skip that for the time being until you have a better idea. So let's say I want an integers list that looks like this, 0 to 9, right? And say we wish here to create a new list comprised of the squares of all those numbers. So we want to comprise a new list, make a new list that's 0 squared, 1 squared, 2 squared, all the way up to 9 squared, okay? So that list should be 0, 1, 4, 9, all the way up to, excuse me, 81. Is everybody good with that? Okay. Now, we could use a loop for this. So in other words, we could say, hey, this is my new list, the squares of the ints list. And then I'm going to say for in this list. This is pretty standard, right? Everybody should feel comfortable with this. For in that list, for an element in that list, colon, tab, right? And then what I'm going to do is to this empty list right here, square integers list, that's what I should have called it, dot append, and I'm going to add the square root, or excuse me, the squared value of each one of those to that list. And then when I print that out, I get this, okay? This would be like the super intuitive way to do that. Does everybody feel comfortable with that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, but however, we could use a list comprehension, which to me is so much more beautiful. So in other words, we could use this, this new list here. We're going to make a new list, right? It's going to be the squared ints, and we're going to compare, I guess. And what we do is we say, let me show you the structure here real quick. We have a function, and then we say for x in some iterable, okay? Some iterable item. Well, here you can see integers list. Our integers list is ints list 0 through 9. Does everybody feel okay about that? Now, n squared for n in integers list. In other words, take an element, square it for each one of the elements in this list. And then that's going to return the whole thing, okay? Does anybody have any questions about this?
So the double asterisk, is that the same thing as like the caret or like your POW function, I guess?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then second question, that kind of looks like an enhanced for loop from Java. Is it the same intuition?
I have no idea because I don't know Java.
It is.
Yeah,
Well, like basically,
yeah, it is.
Okay.
You can
Like
actually do
where
the
it goes
normal
to
for
everything
loop
on the
too,
list,
but
you
this
know,
is like a shorter version.
Couldn't
Say it again, go ahead.
oh couldn't you just do this with NumPy? With a NumPy array, and then you square it, and it'll
Absolutely.
just
So in other
do
words,
it element wise.
yeah, so in other words, it's called vectorizing. It's faster, it's more computationally efficient, but we don't know NumPy yet. So yes, you can, to answer your question. To everyone else, yes, you will be able to once you know NumPy.
Can I just make a comment real quick?
Please.
This gets used a lot in code, so you're definitely going to see this.
A lot.
Yeah.
Especially because you can basically take now. Let me continue a little bit more here, and maybe you'll get a better idea of what we're looking at here. Now, so instead of that list we just had, let's say we have a new list that's comprised of floats, okay? Now, obviously, this is not a float. It doesn't look like a float, that is, but we have some other stuff here. It's ints and floats. I guess that's why I called it ints floats. Now we say we wish to create a new list with only floats from the ints list, okay? So this is the floats only list. So before, I told you that you have to have a function up here, right? Well, this is a function where you just write the element itself. It's like the identity function. So in other words, basically I'm saying return, like functions do, they return things, return the value for that value in that list. So if we got rid of the rest, it would return, well, let me ask somebody, Brian. So if I cut it off right here and I close the bracket, what would this return to me?
It would just return everything in the ints floats list.
Exactly right. It would just
Regardless of
return
the
the
type.
list. Yeah, it would just return the list as it is, right? But one of the important things about list comprehensions, are one of the valuable tools you can use, is that you can also put these little expressions on the end. So for example, in this case, if the type of that element is a float. So in this case, all we want to do is return the floats from that list, not the integers. Any questions about this?
Regarding syntax for if statements, do you not need parentheses surrounding the condition?
No.
But like, could you if you wanted to?
Let's try. You know what? I honestly, I don't remember. Let me see.
Yeah, cell 22 right there.
Let's put one below this.
You can see my addiction for grouping symbols. So
for some reason, I feel like I've done this before and it didn't work properly. I can't remember. And then where's my original list? Is here. So I'll run this. So
it does work. Yay!
Does it make you feel better?
It does, because
it
I
actually
like.
Makes me kind of feel worse. Maybe, I'm not sure. I don't really know how it makes me feel.
I think the standard Python way of writing it is without the parentheses.
Yeah.
It is. I'm just still getting used to that, admittedly.
Honestly, I can't remember, Ethan, but I feel like at some point, like let's just try a standard if statement, right? Let's just try something like x equals 5 if x equals to 5 so I guess it's okay. I think the only time I've ever used it is if I had like to use something like this where I had multiple conditions or something.
Right.
But I don't know, I can't remember. Anyways.
Okay, thanks for checking that out though.
Yeah. Anyways, it just, if anything, it shows you the value of a Jupyter notebook. You know, you just test out everything your heart desires. All right. Tuples. Tuples are up next. Honestly, I don't use tuples that much. But I mean, they're just another type of data structure. I guess the difference is their mutability, which we'll come to in a second. So mixed tuple, right? Floats, strings, ints, got it all here. The point is that you're going to use length and type, same as before. You can index in a similar way here, right? So just as we did with lists, not all that much different. You can see it actually works in a very similar type of way here. But in this case, or excuse me, in the case of tuples are not mutable like lists were. So see how I like try to switch a value. So mixed tuple at the 4th position is equal to 100. You can't do it, right? Data structures, dictionaries are like the best in the entire world. They're beautiful. And there's a lot of different built-in syntax that comes along with dictionaries. I'm not going to go into all of it here. You'll come across it, I guess, as you need it. But the point is that I want you to know they exist. And the most important thing is that they exist in a key value pair format. Okay. So dictionaries, basically, you have the key and then you have the value. So unlike indexing with lists and tuples, in this case, in order to return a value, which is not really indexing, but in order to index out a value, you'll have to provide the key to get the value in return, right? So you still have the length, and the length is going to be related to the keys. So however many keys you have. And then the type, you'll see, right? Length is 4, class is the dictionary. So some of the built-in methods that you can use for the dictionary class, you have .keys. So we're going to return all of the keys, only the keys, okay? You can return only the values, .values here. And then lastly, you can return them as pairs. .items is going to give you each one of the pairs inside of the dictionary. Is everybody good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's like hash maps, basically.
Yeah. So now let's do a little bit more of an advanced dictionary. Okay. So basically now in this dictionary, and then from the sky, leaf flew down and joined our class. That's what it looked like. Like you flew in. You're a superhero. So advanced dictionary now. Yeah, so basically here, okay, so now we have list key, tuple key, dictionary key. Okay, so the point of this is to say that, first of all, keys don't have to just be single elements, of course. I showed that they can be strings up here, but they can be longer strings, right? So now the values can be any kind of data structure you want, basically. So in this case, I'm going to use the value here as a list. Here, I'm going to use the value as a tuple. And here, I'm going to use basic dictionary, which is a dictionary itself. Okay. So Basic dictionary. I think this is just to remind me what we were looking at here. So now, print basic dictionary evaluated at A. So basically, I'm going to index, for lack of a better term, out with the key A, right? So I'm going to use this. And then the basic dictionary evaluated at 8, which you'll keep in mind. So I have this is a key here, and I have this as a key here. So in other words, I should be returning 2 and the string hello world, okay? Which 2, hello world, that's what I get, right? Advanced dictionary here. So now again, I can use the key list key. That's what I'm going to get here. And for my advanced dictionary, I'm going to use my dictionary key, and that's going to return my basic dictionary, which is this. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, so for example, remember how we did like double indexing? I indexed a list from a list, and then I wanted to index inside of that list. So I had to use 2 sets of square brackets, right? Well, it's similar here. So for example, in the advanced dictionary, I'm going to return my the dictionary, basic dictionary, which is found by dictionary key. So I get this out. And then I want to index into that with D here. So I should return 7, and boom, that's what I get. Okay. Any questions about this? Okay. Yeah, this is important. So, for example, if you ever are not sure, like let's say, for example, you're trying to iterate over a dictionary and you're trying to determine if something's a key or not. Here, for example, like if I just went basic dictionary and I evaluated at the string X. So if you look at basic dictionary, the keys are A, D, and hello world, and C. So if I try to return the value associated with the key X, well, there isn't a key X, so I'm going to get a value here. I mean, an error here. However, if you use .get and then you provide the key, it will simply return none, or it will return the value. So no error. In other words, your code can continue to run, but you just have to write it appropriately. Dictionaries are mutable. So let's take a look at here. So for example, before the mutation, I have advanced dictionary, blah, 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 and this. And then I'm going to redefine the value associated with dictionary key here to 11. So then I end up with this, okay? Any questions about any of that? Do either of the Bryans have a question?
No, I'm all good so far.
Okay. I just noticed there was 2 of you. I was like, who's the other person not on camera? Oh, that's the other Brian. Let's see here. So my list equals I for I in range 5. Okay, that's fine. So basically, they're called iterables. Okay, so you can iterate over something, pretty much anything that has positions or indices, something like that, right? So for item in my list, you can do something here, but the point is that return that item. Okay, so I want to see what that item is. Now I've done a couple things here. First of all, there used to be this method. It's not really, I don't know if it's supported anymore or not, but it's not the proper way of doing things. It's called string formatting. So see how I've put in like single quotes here, but then I put in this %D right here.
Oh, I'm getting flashbacks to C.
And then you can say like %, and whatever's supposed to go there. This D means decimal or integer or something. I can't remember. You just look at the chart if you're interested. Here, let's see.
Nowadays they have, I don't know if you know, but they have F strings.
Yeah.
Where
F prime looks like this.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to put the parentheses. You just do F quotation marks, and then you put your string inside, and you can put variables in brackets, and it'll
Let's look. So old school string formatting, I guess I'm old school, okay? So before 3.6, you had two ways of embedding Python expressions inside strings. So this is the way that I learned how to do it. Then this kind of came along, but I don't really like this way a lot. You can be more specific with this kind of stuff. So let's just take a look at a couple of options here. Hello. So for example, where you say %s here, that's like %string. And then you put the percentage sign here. It's not modulo, like where you would see like modular, division or arithmetic. I mean, so you can see how it works here, string, why this isn't great. The code examples are readable enough. However, once you start using several and longer strings, you code much easier. No, that's lame. That's dumb. I'm ignoring that. All right, and then here's the next way you can do it. Hello, 1, you are 0. That's called bullying. Don't do that. So you can see, you can say dot format. So basically what you've done here is you've written a string, right? You've written the string up to this point. Then you say dot format, and then you put these things in there. But no, it's backwards, I guess that's what they were trying to show you. It's based on index, right? So here, the index is the 0th item in this parentheses, and then the first item, right? Person equals name, Eric, age, hello. So I guess you can do it with a dictionary as well. You can do it with key value pairs. This gets much more advanced. For the F strings are probably the best. The only reason that I personally have not invested time in F strings is this, because it may not be true anymore, but for example, on the Newton cluster that you guys are going to use, the GPU cluster, there's two clusters that we as graduate students for Dr. Shaw use. We use the CRCV's GPU cluster, and then we use the Newton cluster. But both of those aren't as up to date. I think F strings didn't become available until 3.8, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, 3.6. So, but anyways, my point is this. You may find yourself working, this may not be as true anymore, but just be careful with F strings, because since they're still relatively new-ish, I mean like a year or two or whatever it is, but my point is that you may find yourself on a server that doesn't support 3.6. Like you may be using 3.5, and then all of the F strings that you have won't work, which is why personally I haven't used them. But if you're just writing code for yourself, it's fine either way. Does anybody have any questions about this? No. Chu, have you ever found yourself in that position?
No, I think F strings have always worked for me.
Okay, that's good. I mean, they're definitely nicer. They're prettier. Iterating over tuples. This works the exact same way, so I'm not even going to go into that, okay? But what I do want to say is this. For, like, for example, if you notice here, I have 4 item in my tuple, right? Now, each one of these items here, we know is associated with some index. So this is the 0th index, the 1st index, the 2nd index, 3rd, 4th, 5th, whatever, right? So in order, if I'm iterating over my tuple, if I want to return the item in my tuple as well as its associated index, I can use something called enumerate. So here I say for the index goes first, comma, and then my item is second, and enumerate, print the index and the item. So 0 is the index, easy as 1, 2, 3a. Good?
So what is enumerate? Is it for, I just don't understand what enumerate means.
So basically, enumerate, I mean, kind of like the actual word enumerate. Basically, it takes this data structure and it assigns it returns the element, each element and its corresponding index. You see what I'm saying? So the first element is easy and its corresponding index is 0. You with me there?
Yeah.
So index item, I want to print those things. So sometimes it's very helpful to have the corresponding index for each item to do something, whatever you want to do. Okay.
Oh, I could be wrong, but I think enumerate just means number items, like to number a list of things. I think that's like the English meaning.
Yeah. So I guess all this really means then is it adds an additional, like, because normally if you didn't write enumerate, you would have for item in my tuple. So you can, I guess, kind of think of it, index, enumerate, those two things kind of correspond to each other. Maybe, I don't know. Iterating over dictionaries. This is equivalent to, yeah, okay. So for example here, so for key in my dictionary, right? You basically want to say, if this would be equivalent to saying my dictionary.keys. In other words, A, B, C, that's when you iterate, that's what you're iterating over. Now, if you were to say something like for key value, now keep in mind, this doesn't actually have to say key, nor does this have to say value. It could say for XY in my dictionary.items, but remember .items returns the key value pairs for those things. So print pair, and then I get my key and the value, blah, 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 blah. Does this make sense to everybody?
Yes. Could you also do for value in my dictionary?
Definitely, you can do that as well.
But I guess you'd have to do my dicted.values, I guess, at that point.
Correct. You would have to say dot values right here.
Okay.
So, and oh, sorry. On the last line on the previous slide, or the last segment, if you just had one variable instead of key, comma, value, would you have gotten tuples?
Let me see if we're on the same page here. Dictionaries.
I think it would throw an error, wouldn't it?
For this one, right?
Oh, okay. I
It's
remember
not
now.
items.
It wouldn't throw an error. It would just give you the one that you had, like one value out of it, because it would return a tuple, but it would only give you one, assign one value.
Meow. My dictionary is here. For key value. Now, if you'll notice here, I actually see how I returned this as a tuple, Chew. So actually, it's not really, it doesn't come to you as a tuple. So if I remove that part, you can see the difference. You see what I'm saying? I guess the answer to your question is yes. Functions. Okay, so basically, this is the general format, right? It's going to say def, def, space, the name of the function, whatever you want to call it, the arguments here. I'm not going to talk about args and quargs. You guys can figure that out later when you need it. I think that it's not really necessary here. I just want you to know the general format of what a function looks like. Value equals whatever, you do something here and then you return that value. Okay, so this is just the general form of a function. So for example, let's say we wanted to return something that's going to tell us, is a number even or odd? Okay, so my number equals 59. If is even, so here's my function. I'm going to call it is even. Here's my argument. I'm going to put number here, and then I'm going to return. Now, I could have written this on a preceding line and then defined it to a value and then return that value. I could do that, but this is just the shortest way to do it. So here, if, so I'm going to use this function to return a bool operator to determine if I should go into this if statement or not. Okay. So if, and I'm going to say is even, which my function, so I'm going to put in my number. So my number is 59. I'm going to put in 59. I'm going to modulus it by 2, which is going to leave me with 1 since it's odd. And I'm going to say, is that equal to 0? No, it's not. So I shouldn't end up here. Else print string. I want to turn my number into a string plus is odd. Okay. Questions about this? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. So now let's use our function to construct a list with a list comprehension. Okay, that's fine. So here's a list. These are our numbers, my numbers, 5, 18, 7, blah, blah, blah. In this, we're going to make a new list, a list comprised of the evens. Okay, so is even, I'm going to use my function is even for a number in my numbers. But notice the important part is I have a function evaluated at x for x. So if you remember in the list comprehensions, this is a function that acts on a value, but the value must be here. Does that make sense to everyone? I cannot express the power of list comprehensions and how incredibly confusing they can be. Here, let me look something up here real quick. Let's say like longest, let's just blow our minds, okay? Longest list comprehension in Python. Michael, what do you think? You think it's going to be just like?
It's just a regex string, probably.
I think it's just going to blow our mind. Here we go. X.id for X in self.db query. So okay, here's my point, is basically that you see how they can just keep going forever and ever and ever. And I'm not kidding you, the logic can get really hard to comprehend, especially because you can have list comprehensions inside of your list comprehension. So your list comprehension is going to act on a list comprehension. So the point is that this can nest as deep as you want it to, just like any loop can nest as deep as you want it to, right? So at some point, sometimes, you know, I mean, we all love those beautiful one-liners, but at some point, just for readability, sometimes you just have to cut it off and say, okay, I'm going to break this into multiple lines, right?
This is why my CS professor has a 100-character line length limit.
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, because at some point, you just got to say enough's enough already, right? I mean, but you will try. We all have. So, you know, why not? So print is evens list. And you can see here, it's going to return false, true, false, false, false. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Those are functions, right? That's just pretty much general syntax of functions. Okay, good. Now, next up, classes, objects, right? So basically, you just want to define, so you're going to have a class here, and inside of classes, you're going to have attributes and methods, right? So here we're going to call this class a person, and its ultimate goal is kind of, it's going to have the attributes of name and age, and it's going to have a function which can print those things for us, okay? Let me see what I really want to talk about here.
Do classes in Python have constructors and destructors, or does that not exist here?
I'm pretty sure they do. I think they have different names, but
yeah, I think the def init is the constructor.
I'm not sure I know what the constructor is.
So okay,
I think the constructor.
It's the name that you give it. The like where it says class person define underscore init underscore. That is basically the Java version of a constructor, I believe.
Well, I'm definitely not your Java guy, so I think Google is the Java guy. Honestly. So So basically what you're going to do here, so you can see P1 equals person. So basically this would be considered the instantiation, okay? Instantiation means, so you've instantiated this object. Well, it's just a really fancy word for meaning it is an instance of that class. In other words, you have created an instance of that object. So this is why I called it person one, P1, right? Because you could do P2 and that would be another instance of that thing. So anyways, when you instantiate person, right, you're going to pass it the variables or the arguments here, John for name. See, I guess this is like my own mess up here. I use double quotes, and then age, right? And then it's going to assign those attributes here. And then we can call upon the methods of that class here by saying P1, the instance of that object, dot, and whatever function is associated with it. So can anyone else tell me of a case today where we've used this type of notation? Dot, so instance of a class, dot, and then a method from that class. What else did we use?
Dictionaries.
Okay, sure. Dot keys, dot values. It's not the one I was thinking of. Anybody else have the other one?
Dot append.
Exactly, that's the one I was
going to say too.
Dot extend. So those are all the same types of things, right?
Quick question regarding self.
Yes.
So both I mean, I guess it makes sense for the constructor to have that, but even
you know
the
what,
function.
let me pause you right there real quick. I don't know Java and I don't know what a Java constructor is, but
no, that's not what I wasn't going to bring up. I was just talking about for this specifically.
No, but just to answer to tend to Zane's thing real quick.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what the init function is doing, is constructing that object. So if there is a thing called a constructor for classes or objects in Java, this is that's probably it, because that's exactly what it does. So I don't know if it's called that here, but anyways, okay, sorry, Ethan, go ahead.
So I see how both the constructor and the function have self as parameters.
Okay.
Is there not like a reserved word for that, or do you have to define self?
I don't know.
I think you have to include self, and we have to do that self.name equal name and self.age equal age and the init.
Yeah, but does it have to be? I think he's asking, does it have to be the word self?
Yeah, I believe it does. I don't know much about it, but I do know that when you're making when you're doing a constructor, as we call it in Java, in Python, I know it, at least it needs a self reference, but I don't really know much about why.
Yeah, I think this is like the this in C++ maybe.
Nope, selfie works.
Maybe it's just the first parameter that it receives.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any, I guess there's no significance. It's just convention, right?
Okay. I'm just thinking because like in Java, there's like this function.
So. I think I understand what it is, because like in Java, we use this and that's always this. But I think in Python, you can like name this thing. You get what I mean, Ethan?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking here. It's just kind of weird. You have to include it every time. That's a little.
I was thinking the exact same thing Michael's thinking.
Yeah, like, do I really have to type that in every time?
No, I'm just kidding. I just said that I would do that earlier. Remember? I told you I was going to do it. There it is.
But we can't have nice things.
Exactly. I mean,
like we may have face cams, but that doesn't mean I can read y'all.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. So let me answer this. So basically, these are questions I think you have when you're like newer to Python. And this is all stuff like if you guys could see the Jupyter notebooks I had when I first started, this is stuff you do, and it's like, and then you find your groove, and after a while you you don't really need to question things like that anymore. But I do encourage those kind of questions for you guys on your own. If you want to try stuff out, that's exactly what Jupyter notebooks are for, in my opinion, is to try weird stuff out like that. You know, once you find your own coding style, then, you know, and you get old, you have less questions about life. But anyways, so that's that. Python documentation. I mean, I hope this goes without saying, but basically, you know, you just seriously look at the documentation. It's, in my opinion, it's almost always very nice and helpful. Debugging. Go ahead.
Whenever there's a function with the two underscores on either side, is that absolutely necessary to put them there every time, or?
Yeah, built in.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, the double underscore like padding kind of defines certain things. Or it's like defined as like, hey, this is important.
I mean, again, like for example, to answer your question, Sanjay, like it's just the way it's done. I mean, if you went and redefined the class without those, you may be able to do it without it. Does that make sense? Like, for example, does it have to be called self? Well, we just saw that it doesn't have to be that, but it is something that's used to represent built-in methods for classes. That's the point. Okay. Actually, it has a meaning. I forgot what it was. The attribute name in order to avoid naming conflicts in subclasses. Yeah, so basically, so it's just a way of naming attributes.
There's actually a really good YouTube video that talks about it that I watched a while ago. I don't remember what it was, but it explains that in some of the names, it automatically will add the double underscore to prevent other names from using the same name and getting things mixed up, different classes and different stuff. So, yeah. Makes
sense. Again, you know, if it's one of those things that if you like find yourself after the RU and you're in a world of, you won't have anything to do with that here. I'm relatively sure. But, you know, if you find yourself in a development position and maybe you need that type of Python, you'll find a place. It's like Michael said, there's good YouTube videos and stuff. Debugging, I just want to say this. There is Python debugger that comes with Python itself. It's not as good it's not even close to as good as the, let me see if I can pull up my PyCharm real quick here. So here's what we were doing yesterday. I mean, you can just do import PDB, Python debugger, right? And then you can set traces along the way. You can set traces by using this. And remember how we set the breakpoint yesterday by using this little red dot? You can do the same thing with this, and then you use the keyboard to go through it like this. It's just not as nice. I mean, if you have any opportunity to use the debugger in PyCharm, it's definitely recommended. Yeah, okay, let's take a look at this. But actually, let's take a quick little break, if that's okay with you guys. I'll see you back. Let's say, should we do 305 or 310?
I'm cool either way.
310 would be good.
310, Zane said it.
All right, works for me.
Okay, I'm gonna pause. Don't let me forget to unpause when we get back.
Cool.
All right, let's jump back in. Brian, you ready?
Let's go.
Yeah. Where's Brian 2 at?
He left for now.
Okay. Okay, so for the most part, unless you guys are doing like development type stuff, I don't think this is going to matter a whole lot, but just so you know about it. So you can import. So for example, here, you can import math, the entire module, the entire package of math, and then you can use the functions that come along with that library, for example, .exponent, .random, etc. However, in the spirit of, I guess, probably speed and space, you can import specific functions from a library without importing the entire library. So for example, at the top of your code, you could either say, import math here, right? Or you could say from math, import whatever you want, exp. You can see the options here. Okay. So that's one of the nice things about PyCharm is it will tell you, what your options are here. So for example, R, whatever. Okay. I guess it's important to show you the difference in the, so for example, let's say, let me see, what was I doing here? So let's say here, x equals math.exp 0.5. So you can do it this way, or you can also do from math import exp. And then when you want to use the exponent, you can just say x is equal to exp. You don't actually have to use the class and then the method dot method. Okay, is everybody good with that? You can just use it directly like this, 0.5. Okay. File handling. So let's mess around with this for a minute. So let me find a good text file here. Here's one. Here it is. So I'm going to put this in the Slack group, okay? Okay, so if you guys would go ahead and save this file to your desktop or wherever, I guess, doesn't really matter. So let's do this one together, okay? So if you guys would open up PyCharm. Now on my Mac, for you Mac users, Robert and Tess, I guess it's just you guys. This is just a fun fact, but I actually used the automator, this thing, automator, here. Okay. Right, I don't need it right now, but I use that to when I right click on a file on my machine, it gives me this option, copy path. Okay. So it makes things a lot easier.
Makes you wonder why that's not built in.
Seriously, it's exactly right. Because the standard way of doing it is to drop it in a terminal, for example, and it'll give you the path. But that seems so anti-Mac to me. All right, let's get rid of all this.
What Slack channel did you upload it to?
Files.
Files? Okay. Browse channels, files. Oh, hello.
All right, so the way we're going to do this is we're going to define my path. We're going to use a string and we're going to put the path in those single quotes, okay? Who's not with me? Okay.
Can I get just a second? Hold on.
Yeah. Take your time. And I may have put some of this in the, I can't remember. I did. So for those of you who are with me, you can just go ahead and copy what I'm doing here. Michael, how are we looking?
I'm trying to figure out where I put it. I put it on my desktop, but I can't figure out the path to it. So.
See, that right-click path thing is like awesome, isn't it? I mean, I know you're not on a Mac, but it's so beautiful.
If you're on Windows and you shift right click, it'll give you an option to copy the path.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I just went to properties. I got it now.
Good show. So there's a couple things I want to say here. First of all, you'll notice, so file one, F1, that's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to open that file. Now, another thing you can notice here is that we haven't actually
Quick question.
Sure.
If we put the file we want to read from in the same location or the same directory as our Python script, is it necessary to specify a path, or can you just say like my path like /output.txt?
You can just say output.txt, no slash. I'm gonna do that in a minute. So here's a couple things I want to say. First of all, when you use open like this here, okay, you're offered a couple options here for the second argument, and you can see I have listed those here. R for reading, W for writing, X for creating and writing. So if you want to create the file and then write to it, right? A for appending to a file. So you just want to add it to the bottom. R plus for reading and writing to the same file. RB and WB for reading and writing in binary mode. Okay, so you have some options here. So here, for example, so you can just get an idea here. So I've opened this. So I'm going to say something like for line in F1, right? Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. So for line in F1, let's print the line, right? And so you can see here, it's printing all those lines, right? Using TensorFlow backend, blah, blah, blah. This is literally what it said, okay? But one of the problems with opening files this way is that it's still, the file is still open in memory. So I actually need to F1.close, okay? So now this is the proper way of doing something. So for example, since I opened it this way, now I also need to close it in this way, right? Is everybody good with that? Now you can also do it another way. So this is way one. Let's put it together. In PyCharm, you can select all the lines that you want, and then command, or I guess control maybe on Windows, I don't know, command / and it will comment all those lines for you.
It's control, yeah, on Windows.
So now, typically what I would do is something more like with open, and you want to do it this way, right? That's not what I want. Get out of here, you little ham sandwich. iPath. Okay, with open as F1, for line in F1, print line. Now, the benefit of doing it this way, so you can see the same thing, but the benefit of doing it this way is that when you use this with statement, the power is that it's only open inside of this loop here, inside of this statement. Does that make sense to everybody?
Oh, so it's like it only exists for this time period, I guess.
Yeah, it only exists for this tab, right? And then as soon as after this line is run for the last time, and then we end up back over here, right, it's gone. So this is probably, usually this is the better way to do it. But just to give you an idea of, you can do it this way. And the reason I show you that is because the other commands, for example, like f.write, if you actually want to write to the file, right, you'll do it that way, f.write. Now you could do that here. You could still do .write. Sorry, this should be F1. You'll still do that in the with statement down here, but I just wanted to show you that you can use these methods that come along with file opening and closing. Okay. Was everybody able to successfully do that, or was there anyone not able to?
I couldn't get my path to work.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the same issue.
All right, so Lee, why don't you share your screen and let's go from there.
I'm actually calling you on the phone, so I cannot share with you.
No, not you.
Yeah,
Lee.
I got your thing, and I have my own TXT file, and I can open it.
Nice. Not you, Lee. Let's do Lee.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. No need to be sorry. It's confusing, right? Wow, this is an exciting screen share. You're muted, by the way.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yeah.
Okay, I think it just broke my computer.
No. All right.
Yeah, everything's frozen. I might have to shut down and come right back.
Well, let me see if I can stop your share for you, okay? So let me share on top of you,
Okay.
and maybe it will. Now, I'm going to stop my share. Lee has started sharing. Are you still there, Leah?
Yeah. My entire desktop is frozen.
You're completely frozen. All right. If you want to go and come right back, that's okay.
Yeah.
Now we know for next time. Okay.
All right.
Okay, Michael, why don't you share?
Okay.
Okay,
So,
go.
well, I know I don't need this, or at least I believe I don't need that, but I'm not sure what to do.
So in my path, you have to have more than just desktop. So, oh God, Ethan, you're just like, to me, you're like the Windows poster child. So it makes me mad at you. Not really. But you see how it has the backslashes? It just pains me to see it. So
Yeah, that's Windows for you.
yeah. So you're going to actually need to add the name of the file as well. So it should be /
Oh yeah, you'll have to do that.
And then you're going to do capital output.txt. Yeah.
Also, there's a corrupted character on that first line as well in the error down there. So
Where?
it says syntax error, can't decode this character. So like just erase the first few characters of the path and then like retype them.
I did that actually already.
Oh, you did?
The backward slashes are like different.
Let me just see what this does.
As not
actually.
Get rid of the space, Michael.
For the space?
Try it and see what happens. And get rid of the C colon and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think you need the C colon for this.
No, you don't need a C colon.
Yeah. Get rid of the space and then use space bar to put another one in there and see what happens. Yeah, delete it and then put it back in. Yeah.
Isn't it because of the backward slashes instead of forward slashes?
I think
yeah, it's probably that actually. Yeah, because it doesn't know UX, so yeah, you'll have to replace those with all forwards.
Like that?
When I copied my path, I had to switch them manually.
No.
Yeah, for VS Code, you need 2 backward slashes, like 2 of them, for Windows.
Oh yeah, if you wanted to do that. Although I don't know if that would have worth a shot.
No, this is not saved in the same
There
spot.
you go.
There we go.
Hey, there we go.
Nice. So in other words, the first function that you're going to build probably is something that switches all the paths for you.
That would be convenient.
That's what I would do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
My friend.
Well, let's see. I don't think Leah is back yet. Is she?
I'm back. Hi.
Nice. You're here. So did what he just did answer your question?
I did not hear what happened. I literally just got back.
So why don't you do this? Why don't you copy your path and paste it in the chat and let us take a look at it. See that first line he has? Copy the full first line, your first line, and paste it in the chat, and we're gonna collectively analyze it.
You want me to stop sharing?
You can, yeah. Doesn't matter, I guess.
I just got to pull open PyCharm again real quick.
Okay. Sanjay, did you get it?
Yep.
Nice. Do you feel accomplished?
Yeah. Although, one quick question though.
Yeah.
When we do for line in F1.
Yeah.
Does F1 automatically just go by lines, like when you try to enumerate through it?
That's what you're iterating over. Yeah.
Okay. And line is just the name that we use, right? It's not actually.
Exactly right. Yeah. I should probably even use something else like X. All right. So my path. So I think you'll have to do the same thing, is change all those backslashes to forward slashes. speaking of backslashes to forward slashes, are you guys up? Like, are you guys hearing about all this like Bill Gates drama?
I have.
Yes.
Yeah, like apparently it's coming out like well, first of all, him and Melinda are getting divorced, and then like it's coming out that, you know, he was like hitting all these other women at the job place and something, I don't know. Anyways.
Okay, yeah, that works. Why why does that work?
Honestly, I don't really know. I really don't know. I'm sure there's somebody that's more computer savvy than I am that knows, but now we know you have to do it, and that's the important thing. Okay. So you can handle other files in a similar way: CSVs, HTMLs, JSONs, pickles. There are specific packages that you can use. For example, pandas. You can use the JSON package. You can use the CSV package to handle different types of files, right? We're not going to go into all that here. I think you have the basic idea of how it works. And if you wanted to, for example, let's say you wanted to manipulate a JSON file, okay? So JSON, let's see, load and write JSON Python. There you go, okay? I mean, literally, that's all you do. And once you've Googled it, you just look for something. Now, once you have some nice, like, first of all, okay, so see, here's the import JSON package, right?
Can you share your screen?
You know, that would make sense. That's what you call a good old fail. Okay, here we go. Yeah. So here's what I Googled. Load and write JSON Python, right? Geek for Geeks, go here. Writing and using, and you just go in here and you just find something. JSON dumps, right? Import JSON. So here's the JSON package that I talked about. Here's the data, whatever. So basically, JSON files are just big dictionaries. Okay, that's what they look like. They're saved as giant dictionaries. And when you save them, there's a certain format. They typically look something like this. And then, but anyways, my point is that see how it says with open as output file. I mean, the idea is the same as what we just did. Okay, so now that you have like this foundation, there's no way I can teach you all of Python, but I want you to get the idea. So, sorry, I was wondering if my fan was on. So anyways, are you guys good so far with this, right? So you can handle other file types, right? Now there is Pickle and Pandas libraries are not as straightforward as that. They're considerably more complicated, but we'll come to those as we need them. Yeah, with I already did all this. You guys can go back and read through this stuff, okay? JSON, here you go. I've even offered some little examples here on how to handle JSONs. Now we'll use NumPy. So basically, NumPy is the kind of like the computational mathematics package for Python. Okay. So anytime we're handling like large arrays, multi-dimensional arrays, any type of multi-dimensional array arithmetic, we're going to do all that stuff with NumPy. Okay. It's designed to handle it this way. So Michael asked earlier, and I said, we'll come back to it. This is where we're coming back to it. So basically, NumPy arrays are defined by their dimension. So for example, here, if you had a NumPy array, you'll see it says 4, comma. I know it looks weird, but that just means one dimension, okay? So this is a one-dimensional array. Here you have a 2 by 3. So it's a 2-dimensional array. Then you have a 3-dimensional array. So it's a 4 by 3 by 2. But there's no reason you have to stop at 3-dimensional arrays, okay? So our human minds can comprehend that 3 dimensions. But at some point, you can continue to beef up the array dimensions, even though we can't comprehend them. So axis 0, this is kind of important. I'm not saying you should memorize it right now. You may have to come back to the notes. For me, NumPy array dimensions were one of the hardest things to comprehend, okay? Because that was the problem. I was trying to comprehend them, and you can't always do that. So coming from mathematics, I always wanted to see things like, I wanted to be able to imagine it looking like this or like this. It's not always possible, okay? So sometimes trying to envision what it looks like is a little bit of a weakness, right? So axis 0 is along the rows. Axis 1 is along the columns. And then axis 2 is along the z dimension, right? The third dimension. So we have specific functions inside of there. So for example, typically what we're going to do is we're going to say something like this. So let me see. Let's put a new file. Let me pause that real quick. And I wanted to show you this. I told Ethan I would do it. So I'm being reminded that while we're here. So Ethan, I think it was you that asked earlier, what if the output.txt file was in the same directory as my PyCharm project? So I'm going to do exactly that, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in here, right?
I actually put it in my folder and it worked for me. So it looks like you just type output.txt as your path.
So now I don't need all this extra stuff, right? Everybody see that? So you can just put it in there if you want. See how it's over here? So in other words, you can just drag and drop files into your PyCharm project. So they're all right here. And then you can even create like directories inside of here. So new directory, and then you can put your files in there, right? So that's a nice feature. Now, what I wanted to do next. All right, so typically you're going to say import NumPy as NP, okay? Now keep in mind that this is only working because, remember this, by the way, okay, so just a quick Linux thing. All right, see how I'm in this terminal right here? And it's currently, it currently has this, actually, I don't want to cancel out of that right now, so I'm going to open a new tab. All right, so, so let's do Conda activate REU 2021. Okay, so Conda lists, right? Now, if I created just a basic old virtual environment without, remember how I typed Anaconda at the end of the virtual environment construction? If you did that without typing Anaconda, you wouldn't have necessarily have NumPy in there. I don't know if it downloads it or not, but the point is that you don't get all the good stuff. But see how NumPy is already in here in our virtual environment? So that's why I'm able to type this, import NumPy as NP, because it's included in the interpreter for this project. Well, what's the interpreter for this project? Well, and on a Mac, you can come up here, and I'm sure it's something similar for Windows. You go to Preferences, you come down here. Let me close this so I can see what's happening. Project, Interpreter, and you can see that I'm using REU 2021, right? So now you can also see what packages are listed inside of this environment from this view. And this is an important thing, even if you're good at Python. You can add packages through PyCharm, but I don't recommend doing it that way. I always recommend installing them by way of the command line, okay? So anyways, to use NumPy, typically you're gonna say something like this: import NumPy as NP, okay? Now, let's say we want to, let's call ident, and let's say x is equal to, no, not x, what is it called? NP, I think it's np.i, yeah, I. And I can't remember if we need to give dimensions here. So let's just try it and see what happens. function I. That's not what I wanted. Let's try ones first. Okay, so np.ones, and then you can see you give the dimensions here, right? So ones, and then we're going to put the dimensions inside of here. We want a 3 by 3. Right. So you can see, does everybody see this matrix here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Please do.
If you notice, the parenthesis, there was 2 sets of parentheses in that ones, because that inner one is a tuple. If you don't have the 2 sets of parentheses, it'll give you an error.
So let me see something here real quick. Preferences, key map.
Isn't the dimension also called the shape?
I think it shows you what hotkey to you need to automatically run it if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, but I want to change it.
Oh.
Editor actions. Let's just do run. Run can no run. Here we go. Oh, it is just command. No, I don't want to run with coverage. I want to. Let's try this. See, I thought I did that. No, okay, there we go. Anyways, yeah, okay, good, it works. Command R for Mac people. Yeah, you can see that's not right, and I can't remember exactly why. I mean, doesn't really matter. Just do it this way. Okay. Command R. Built-in linear algebra, for example, the dot product here, right? Let's see what else. Zeros, 1. The identity. And again, here, kind of towards Michael's observation earlier, if you notice when I used ones, right? Zeros would work the same way, right? Zeros is just going to give you an array of that size comprised of all zeros. But the point is that you can see how this, well, let's do a 1, 2, 3 as well. So you have a 1, you have 1 2 by 3. Okay, so let's do multiple of these. Let's do 5. So if you'll notice here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, right? So you have 5 2 by 3s. Okay, so you can just play with this stuff, print it out, see what it looks like. But one thing I do want you to observe is that here in the I, which is going to return the identity matrix, in other words, ones along the diagonal, this gives you all zeros, this gives you all ones, this gives you ones along the diagonal only, so it must be square. But the point is that you don't need those inner parentheses here, and I'm not 100% sure why. I mean, maybe if I thought about it or looked it up, but if you're interested, we can do a deeper dive on that later. Oops, sorry. So if you use np.random.rand, it's going to create a two-dimensional array of size 2 by 4 of random values drawn from a uniform distribution. I mean, there's really no way here. So here you're going to get them from a normal distribution. There's really no way for me to go into all the NumPy stuff. So here's my recommendation to you, is that the best way, in my opinion, to learn NumPy stuff is that NumPy will do anything your heart will desire, basically. Okay, so when you want something, Google it. If you can't find it, message me and I'll tell you what it is. Okay, because there's literally no way I can tell you all this stuff. I mean, like, if you noticed here, like how it said ones, but then there's this other thing called ones like, and then there's zeros, but then there's zeros like. And it's basically, I want all ones, but I want it like the shape of this other array, right? So the point is that there's literally infinitely many of these things that I cannot even discuss. There's so many of them. So the point is this, the best way I think you guys can learn these is know the basics, right? Know the basics, a ones, a zero, add, subtract, multiply. These are done through, these are vectorized processes, which means it's just more computationally efficient to use NumPy than to say X plus Y and then change it into a NumPy array. Does that make sense? Computationally, it is more efficient to use NumPy to add things and whatnot than it is to just add them and then convert them to a NumPy array, okay? So the best way I think you guys can learn is, first of all, I think reading other people's code a lot of the time, that's probably how I learned the most of them, is when you read other people's codes, you see NumPy tricks that they've learned along the way, and then you can just mimic those and use your own tools. Go ahead, Michael.
I just want to add a caveat to what you're saying. The reason why NumPy is faster, and it's a good idea to get it into NumPy as soon as you can, any kind of data, is because NumPy is written in C, and it's been written as efficiently as possible. And the way the Python compile, well, Python doesn't really compile it, it's a script language. So it does a lot of work to interpret it before it goes to your CPU. So there's a lot of extra work being done, a lot of extra computations being done. But when you use NumPy, it goes straight as C to the CPU and runs that way. So it's significantly faster. So it's always a good idea to use NumPy before anything else.
Perfectly said. Thank you. So just a couple more that I'd like you to keep track of. NumPy.copy. So for example, if X is a NumPy array, you can assert the type of that array by using ASType, okay? You can reshape something. For example, let's say X was a 3x3. You can reshape it into a 2x4. Speaking of reshape, so basically what we'll be doing is we'll be loading images, right? And when you load those images, they're going to come to us as like a 120 by 120, right? But towards your question earlier today to Dr. Lobo, Michael, about how are they device dependent? Are these neural networks that we build device dependent? No, because all you have to just do is type resize. Like we just take any image from anywhere and you just resize it to whatever you want. So let's say, for example, my neural network only handles things that are like a 16:9 ratio, like 1280 by 720, okay? But then I end up with some images that are 1280 by 1280. There's ways of handling that type of thing. Typically what you'll do is you'll reduce the dimension down to the smallest dimension of your neural network, 720 by 720, and then you'll pad the sides with black or something like that. And there's various different tools that we try to, and then you'll test the performance of those different tools. Or you could just crop out a region that is equal to, you can randomly crop at each pass of your neural network the size that belongs inside of your neural network, and then resize up or down as necessary. So that all happens with NumPy. So all those reshape functions, all that stuff that you're doing. I mean, you can resize images with OpenCV, of course, which we'll talk about later. But concatenate, basically, concatenate means just put next to, right? And then vertically stack and horizontally stack. So in other words, if you want to vertically stack something, you want to stack it along the rows, and then rows, and then then you do it this way. So personally, if I have to ever use vertically stack or horizontally stack, I always just do a quick little print example, because to me they're confusing and I never remember which one's which. So I think it's always good to test before you do that, just to minimize errors in your code. And I think that's it for this slideshow. So there's one other thing I wanted to look at. I wanted everyone to download OpenCV while we're here. Poster session, intro to deep learning, Robert. OpenCV. Let's watch this real quick and see. This one's short.
So can you tell me, what did you do again? What fixed the problem?
Well, I did.
No, just repeat what you said a minute ago because I wasn't recording.
So I uninstalled OpenCV. I did conda uninstall OpenCV, and I reinstalled it using pip install.
Okay. And you used
I ended up
Python?
Yes,
Okay.
but I actually did the pip install OpenCV -contrib -Python.
Interesting. Okay, that's very important.
I noticed that it includes more things, including the main module, so I figured it couldn't hurt.
Nice, I like that.
That's what I did. So it looks like that installed correctly. However, you can see my screen now. I'm just having trouble running this. I'm in the correct interpreter, but
So go into the first time you run a file, go into the main menu and right click.
The main menu.
All right, let's try that. Okay. So I currently don't have OpenCV installed. The reason I want to talk about this is because OpenCV is always such a hassle to install. So before we leave today, I want everybody to have it installed. So that's the goal right now. So open up either an Anaconda prompt or a terminal. Enter into your REU 2021 environment. And I'm going to just straight out of the gate. So let's Google it real quick to see conda install OpenCV. I want to see what it says. So conda install -c anaconda OpenCV. This might work for some people. Last upload was a year and 2 months ago. Well, I've done REU even since then, so I'm personally not going to try that. So let's try it this way. So remember yesterday I told you that in Anaconda you can also use pip, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do pip install OpenCV -contrib -Python. I think that's the one I want. Let's try it and see what happens. Well, no. Is it going to be that easy? All right, so let me do this. Python import CV2. Hello? It's updating right now. So nice. Okay, so Tess and Robert, did that work for you guys?
I got it on my
Wait,
end.
you get a
it's still
download
doing
at
it.
24 millibytes per second?
Megabytes.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. That's wow.
What, is that fast?
Compared to mine, yes, I get 500 kilobytes.
Well, here's the real deal. Let me see.
That's around same speed for me. I got
Speed test isn't accurate because internet service providers will show a higher speed on that than what you actually get.
Oh, it's close enough.
Yeah, I got
Also, the ads make it literally unbearable.
I mean, I could check it on my phone, but this is just for the sake of.
You gotta flex that connection speed, you know?
Yeah. I don't know why it's not working.
Y'all gotta get on the Ethernet wave, you know.
What are we getting on?
Ethernet, man. It's supreme. If you can.
What I need to do is get a
I could.
like a cable or a power line Ethernet adapter, but I don't have one.
I mean, I could, but usually I don't have a problem because I have gigabit internet. So, I mean, even without the Ethernet, I'm still typically pulling down like 500.
I'm getting almost 310 right now.
You are?
Yeah.
800.
800?
Dude, that is a flex.
Bro, don't bring your drink over and flex on everybody like that. Just take a sip, like no big deal. Oh, wow.
See, the thing is, though, like you never really, at least I never see speeds this good most of the time.
All right, who's down? Tess and Robert, did it work for you guys?
Yeah, it looks just like yours, so I think so.
Okay, that's good. Robert, you're good. Okay. Now let's start with number one. Number one, Lee, did you do it? Or you can do it later. Okay, number two, who's number two? Tess, number three, you're good. Number four, Sanjay, did it work?
Yep, worked.
Nice. Okay, number five, Chu, did it work for you?
Yeah, although I just noticed you have Python 3.7. I have 3.6. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. But you're inside of your virtual environment, right?
Oh, I said yes, I am.
Okay. Number six.
Yeah, it works same thing.
Same. Okay, good. Seven, Leah.
Seems like it.
Okay, good. Eight, Brian.
Yeah, I've got mine.
Nice. Number nine. Ethan, are you number nine?
What?
Are you number nine?
Yes, I am.
Ethan. I thought you were like one of my go-to guys.
Ouch.
And there's like no number nine there, so.
Oh, okay. I must have rejoined. Okay.
Wow.
Just when I think I have it, I don't. This is.
This
makes it. I was on top of it earlier. Now I'm not.
Michael, how you looking? You got it?
I got it to work on mine now. So.
Yeah, mine's good. I did the little import thing and it worked too.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, good. So now let's just do. Let me see. Actually, okay. Go into Slack, go into random, go into the image that Chu uploaded. It's here, okay. Save this image into the directory, your PyCharm projects directory for REU 2021 best. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? And then let's change the name to one word fun pick. Okay. Everybody good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And JPG, funpick.jpg. All right, PyCharm projects, REU 2021 best. Save it there. Okay. This is ultimately the goal of what we're about to do. Okay, so.
Wait, what did you name it? Honeypick, okay.
Come on, little computer, you can do it. All right, I'm going to do a new Python file, and we're going to do OpenCV testing. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is import CV2. Okay. Now, it's important that it doesn't have a red line under it. If it has a red line under it, something didn't work properly. Okay. And we're going to say pick path is equal to fun pick. It should pop up for you automatically. Okay. Is everybody with me? Okay. Now, here's what we're going to do. Image is equal to cv2.mread pick path. Okay. Then we're going to do image.mshow, or no, sorry, cv2.mshow imshow window name can be anything. I mean, the window name is just the name of what we want to show. So I'm going to do camel case, fun. Actually, I'm going to do space, fun, space, capital PIC. And then mat, see how it says comma mat? That means the matrix, right? So image, that goes here, okay? Then we're going to do cv2 dot wait key 0, which means it's going to wait for you to press a key until it disappears, right? And then we're going to do cv2 dot destroy. This is my favorite. Destroy all windows. I mean, it doesn't have to be all windows. You can just use destroy window too, but destroy all windows. I think it's differential equations. You know how it's like the annihilation method. You guys I love all. So
kind of reminds me of from my CS class. Dr. Zimlansky would make fun names for his like destroy functions that would clean up memory. Like when we were doing trees, he named it forest fire.
Oh my God, low blow.
And then I know on similar note, I named mine chainsaw. So.
All right, let's give this a shot and see what happens. Everybody ready? Now you don't have to do it yet, but I'm going to do mine. Oh, my right click is not working real great. Run. Hey. Okay. And then here, once I'm in here, I just press any key to escape. I press escape, and then I got exit code 0. Okay. Here, I'm going to drop this in case you want it. This may be a little, too late, but I'm going to put it in snippets here. Okay. Does anybody remember the way to type code? I think it's code. Yeah, there it is.
Wait, how do I run the specific file I am on again? It's running main for me.
Yeah, you right click in the text body. The first time you run a single file, right click in the text body.
Okay.
And then you'll say run OpenCV testing. Yeah, you good?
All good here.
Good. Okay, Tess, did you get it? Actually, we'll come back to you since.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, good. Number 3. Robert, did you get it?
I have like a squiggly line under CV2 for some reason still.
Now, is it squiggly red?
Yeah.
Okay, then that means one of two things. Share your screen for me, please. Are you on your Mac machine?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like redoing it on this other one, and let's see.
Okay, you do have a red line. So the first thing, so show me the Are you sharing only PyCharm?
Yeah, this is only, well, I don't know.
Okay, go up to
What do you
preference.
all see?
Go to PyCharm in the top left corner. Actually, can you stop your screen share and then just do a general share and without the PyCharm?
Oh, just desktop. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Click on PyCharm. Yeah, okay, now go to PyCharm in the top left corner. Yep, come down to preferences. And then expand the caret on the left-hand column that says project. It's the 5th from the bottom. Yep, interpreter. So that's the problem right there. You're in base. So let's change your interpreter. So show all, yep. I actually don't even see it here. Did you create RU 2021?
Yeah.
Okay, so then click on the plus. Existing environment, or actually click on the left-hand column, conda environment. Yep, and then existing environment. And then make available, make sure you click, make available to all projects. Yep. And actually go in there, click on the 3 dots real quick, because you have Python. Something's weird with that Python. So yeah, go scroll up. Yeah, you don't want that Python. You're gonna want, scroll to where you're out of this bin. Yeah, go to Anaconda 3, good. And then click the caret for bin to minimize it. Yeah, and go to environments.
This one.
Yep. Click the caret there. Yep, click that bin, and then go down to Python 3, should be 3.7 if I'm not mistaken. You guys can't imagine how many hours I spent figuring all this stuff out, all by my lonesome. Python 3.7, there it is. Bada bing, bada boom. Beautiful. That should be it. Apply, yeah. Now, if you just want to wait a second, we can actually see if it's in here or not. Okay, is anybody else having problems?
I am.
Okay, we'll come. Now scroll down and see if we have OpenCV in here. Yeah, okay, that's good. That should work. That should be fine.
Okay.
Okay, now once it updates the skeletons, see how it says, you can click OK here. And then you see in the bottom how it says indexing Python SDK, et cetera,
Yeah.
That's going to take a minute. And once it does, then this should work.
Okay, thank you.
But you will have to type the stuff after show to actually show the image, because otherwise it disappears so fast you can't see it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, you can stop sharing. Thank you.
Okay.
That's perfect. All right, Zane, you want to go ahead and share yours?
Yeah. Okay, so I had this. This was previously bold, but I got it to run. I'm just getting this error.
First of all, Qt is a C++ package. There's it's used for like creating GUIs. There's also a PyQt for Python. It's a Python wrapper for Qt. Get rid of the event log off to the right. Unable to display frame variables. See how that's off the bottom right? There's that other window. Yeah, get rid of that. Click on Python console, or just run it and.
Yeah, it takes time. I don't know why.
Discovering binary modules, blah, blah, blah. So run it again for me, right click.
No, it just takes time.
Okay. Yeah, so you see, yeah, that's the one I wanted to get rid of. Even though it was, Qt could not load the, are you on your Linux machine or your Windows machine?
Linux.
Okay. Start, no Qt platform plugged in, can be reinstalling the application may fix this problem. XC aborted. Try Googling that error and see what happens, okay? That first line, could not connect a display. Are you running an external display or something?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, let's try that. All right, is anybody else having problems? Yep. After using human plugins or scroll down. Got keys from blah, blah, keep going.
Well, I think maybe it's something with WSL. It can't show GUIs.
Yeah. Are you running all of this stuff in parallel on your Windows machine?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would try to
go Windows, huh?
Yeah, just do it over there because there's too many. Sudo apt-get install Wireshark. No, we're not doing that. Why do we need Wireshark for this problem?
Yeah, I mean, I can do on Windows. I've worked with CV2.mshell and stuff like that. So
okay, yeah, this probably at this point. Oh, okay, they were using for Wireshark. I see. Okay. All right, so then let's see. That's number 6. Number 7, Leah, did you get it? Nice. Brian, did you get it?
Yes.
Excellent. Ethan, you're good? Good. And I think we saw yours, Michael, so you're good, right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, that's great. Well, then that's it for today. That's pretty much all of the main stuff I wanted to focus on. Before we leave, I do want you guys to, so we'll look at the schedule for Monday, okay? So Monday, we're going to do Kira's tutorial, part 1, Kira's tutorial, part 2, and then assignment 1, image classification on CFAR 10. And then when we come back in on Tuesday morning, we're going to do assignment 1 review. Now, the idea is typically that we start on, well, I designed this schedule originally for starting on a Tuesday. We started on a Wednesday. So usually you have the weekend to do assignment 1. So since today is Friday and you'll have the weekend, what I would like you to do is to hop over here. This assignment, not assignment 0. Assignment 1. Okay.
You gonna share your screen?
Haha. You know, that would make a lot of sense. All right, can you guys see this? Assignment 1, Kiros. I'm going to drop this in. I'll put it on Slack just for posterity. Meetings, preparation. Let's add assignments. Create a new channel. Assignments.
So I take it anything we will need regarding assignments will be on that GitHub page.
I think so.
Cool.
Okay. So assignment 1 is going to be CFAR 10 image classification with Keras. Now, let me say this. So you're going to go through this whole show, right? And you're going to do all this in Keras, whatever. Oops. Blah, blah, blah. So you can start taking a look at this stuff. Now, let me say this. Let's go over to the PyTorch version, which I haven't put here, I guess. You can find this entire code, okay, by Googling. You just literally will say CFAR 10 Keras. Okay. I mean, you're going to find it on the Keras website, okay? So there's nothing super advanced about this, but the point is I want you guys to go ahead and get started with it. And on top of that, it's not just the classification that I care about, okay? There's also a couple other things that you're going to do. So one, I want you to increase the number of layers that you're going to use for the network, okay? So basically, the network should be implemented at a minimum of 4 different sizes. The minimum size of each network must be at least 3 layers. So in other words, what you're going to do is you're going to do a convolutional neural network. Like when you Google it and you go to the Keras website, you can probably find a convolutional neural network there, okay? The first one should have 3 layers. And then I want you to write another one that has 4 layers, and then another one that has 5 layers, another one that has 6 layers, okay? Now you can do this functionally. What I mean by that, I mean that you can write a function if you want that adds in layers based on a user input, for example. Like, say I can say, it asks the user, how many layers would you like to have? You know, 3, 4, 5, or 6, whatever. And I can input my response and it will tell me, okay? You can do it that way. Or you can hard code the whole thing if it makes you happy, right? If you're less comfortable with Python and in your first go, you have to actually hard code each neural network individually. So you have a single neural network and you write your own Python file for that one, and it's called 3-layer CNN. And that one is going to have 3 layers. Okay, that's fine. So is everybody kind of tracking what I'm saying here? I'm not expecting you to be completely familiar with how Keras works, and I'm not expecting you to be completely familiar with how convolutional neural networks work. But you should have a little bit of idea of CNNs, and Keras you'll be learning on Monday, and you can Google the code anyways. So it's not like, you know, whatever we talk about on Mondays should hopefully be some kind of review if you could just Google the code on your own this weekend, right? I do have 100 CFAR 100 right here. CFAR 10, CFAR 100, it doesn't really matter. It's the same amount of images either way. CFAR 10 just has more images in each class, okay? So then the second thing I want you to do is increase the data set size. So minimum number of images in each class should be 10. So I would prefer you do CFAR 10. And with the CFAR 10 data set, I want you to start with 15 images in each class. So that means you're going to have 10 classes of 15 images each. So for a total of 150 images. Does everybody get what I'm saying? Okay. Then you should increment the size of each class by 15 images. So each one has 15 images, then each one has 30 images, then each one has 45, right? 15 is kind of irrelevant. I don't care if it's 20, I don't care if it's 50. 15 doesn't really matter. It's just you have to increment the data set size. The point is to show that as you increase the data and as you increase the number of layers in your neural network, your performance should improve using both of those techniques, right? So the experiment should be conducted at a minimum of 5 different data set sizes, okay? So in other words, you're going to have to read the data set in, and then you're going to, now I don't want anyone to get too overwhelmed by this, okay? Now, let me say this. When I first showed up on May 18th, 2018 or 2019, I had never written a single line of code, Python. I had never heard of deep learning. I'd never heard of computer vision. I had no idea what Keras was. I had no idea what a convolutional neural network was. I'd never taken a single computer science class in my life. Okay. Dr. Shaw prints this assignment off, hands it to me, and tells me to go do it by myself. So I started reading. This is what I did. Construct a, okay, I'm good so far. All right. Convolutional, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Neural network, no, I'm definitely screwed. And so it was very overwhelming for me. So I don't want you guys to be overwhelmed, okay? We're going to go through this in detail on Monday. But at this point, I want you guys to take the weekend and try to do this because as you saw on the schedule, you're going to be assigned this task on Monday evening, and then we're going to review it on Tuesday morning. Is everybody with me here? All right. So questions about any of that?
A couple things. So I guess what was the general amount of time we'll have for assignments? So right now it looks like we have from today till like Tuesday to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's really...
I'd probably say today to Monday just to be safe, but...
The whole thing is there's really no point of assignments to me. Nobody, there's not going to be any grade book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to slap you on the hand if you don't do it. In my mind, Zane, you better watch out. Here it comes. Yeah, in my mind, there is no point to any of this except for I am trying to build your code library. That's it. When you go work with somebody, I want you to have the basics of computer vision, which is classification on MNIST, which you should already have that code, classification on MNIST, right? Because you Googled it and I gave it to you in assignment 0, right? Then assignment 1, which is this, we're going to do it in Keras and we're going to do it in PyTorch. And then assignment 2, which is classification on images, CFAR. And then assignment 2 is going to be action recognition on videos, UCF 101. And we're going to do that in PyTorch. My point is that I want to build your code library so when you go do your projects with somebody else, you don't have to reinvent the whole wheel. You can come out gunslinging right away. So Dr. Shaw is going to be impressed by you. Your graduate student's going to be impressed by you. You're going to have all this code. You're going to be ready to go. You see what I'm saying? That's my point. So if it takes you all the time we're together for this, so there's really not a deadline on the assignments. You're doing it for your own good. You know what I mean? I'm not going to grade you. We're just, the whole point is to build your code library so that you can come out gunslinging right away. Does that answer your question, Ethan?
Mostly. I mean, I know I usually just work well deadlines. So even if it's not
deadline is Tuesday morning.
All right, yeah, that works. And then my other question is, I saw down there they just talk about submitting a readme.md file.
Yeah.
How do we go about making?
No, where did you see that?
It's pretty sure that's at the bottom. Yeah, the submission.
We'll cross
would we just submit this or?
No. Just you're not. Honestly, you're gonna share your screen with me and you're gonna read your code to me, and that's about it. You don't need to.
All right, I like that way more than that zip file they want down there.
No, I'm not doing any of that, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I'm not gonna read it. I mean, now here, let me tell you this. I'll tell you, Dr. Shaw will ask you for your results. If you don't have them, it will be a bad time. So, yeah, I mean, so you're going to need this. You're going to need graphs and charts and stuff like that. He's going to want to see all that. He's going to want to hear what was your loss? What was your accuracy? You're going to say 98%. Michael's going to say 99%, and he's going to ask you why you suck. Okay. I mean, so you need to make sure that you do have the tools that you will go into your presentation for him, right? But I don't want all this other stuff. Like, it doesn't have to be, this is not a formal report for a class. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so basically just our code and like some supporting graphs, I guess, is what you're looking for.
Yeah. You're just going to share your screen and you're going to show it right here in front of everybody.
Okay, that works.
Yeah. Okay. So prepare thyself.
That makes me feel a lot better because I don't want to spend hours learning how to make a README.
No, nobody wants to do all that. Okay. I mean, there's few enough of us to where we can just share the code with each other. We're going to look at each other, share screens. And I think, honestly, I think that's better because your code may be a little bit different from somebody else's. And we can say, hey, why did you write this line that way? And whatever. So anyways, so just read through this, ask questions. You can ask questions. Let's take a poll. Do you guys want to discuss the assignment in the general tab or in the assignments channel? Which one?
I feel like general would work better, so we can just use assignments as like our Canvas page.
That was my guess. That was what I was thinking. But how does everybody else feel about that? Okay, that's
good either way.
Okay.
Sure, I mean, I don't see any other use for general.
Okay, good. So now random, on the other hand, with many other uses for this one. Okay. All right, so I think that's about it. If you have any questions, post them in general. Feel free to answer each other's questions. If I see something that looks wrong, I'll weigh in. If you have a direct question for me, just let me know. These things are kind of important, but focus on this part first. This is the most important, okay? So here's how I would recommend doing this assignment. Step 1, Google CFAR10 code for Keras, okay? Since you don't have access to GPUs yet, put that into a Google Colab notebook, change the runtime type, and this will run in less than 10 minutes, okay? Get that code running completely good as it is. Does that make sense to everyone, right? Just normal. Don't change the layers. Don't change the image size, the data set size. Don't change any of that. Get the code working normally. And then work on either altering the data set size or work on the neural network changing size. But don't do both at the same time. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just classic problem solving type stuff, okay? Good?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounds good. You guys, let me know if you have any questions, okay? Chu, did you have...
I'm sorry, her question's probably more important.
Chu? No? Chu, that person's still asleep back there. Are they okay? They're safe, okay. All right. Hopefully they can't hear me. That would be embarrassing. Oh, they can hear me. So
one thing. I actually used TensorBoard in the past, so I can kind of help with that. But
did I talk about that in here?
I see it in the GitHub page. Yeah, they mentioned TensorBoard. Okay.
Yeah, TensorBoard. Let me just show you guys real quick. TensorBoard is pretty phenomenal, especially if you're using Keras, because you're going to get all your graphs and stuff. And let me say this: Dr. Shaw loves pictures. Okay, he wants to see your results in the form of a picture. So personally, I use Matplotlib, Matplotlib, but you can also use TensorBoard. So let me just give you an idea of what TensorBoard is. TensorBoard gets installed with TensorFlow. Okay, and TensorBoard creates little graphs like this, right, for you. So all of your results look exactly like that. It's pretty nice, right? So everybody get the idea? Okay. However, because TensorBoard, not 100%, okay, this is not entirely true, but just for all intents and purposes, because TensorBoard relies on TensorFlow and Keras, you have to have one or the other to use it. I don't really use it myself because I use PyTorch, okay? Now, there are ways to use TensorBoard with PyTorch. I think it's called TensorBoard X or something, but.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that too.
Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, you just write your own scripts to use Matplotlib and stuff, okay? So let me know if you have any questions with that. But basically what Ethan's trying to say is if you want to show your stuff in graphs and pictures, which you will, you should have all that stuff. But like I said, focus on the other stuff first, okay? All right. Other questions?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Since we haven't really gone over Keras yet.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is that just the dataset, or is that also something that is implemented in our code?
Okay,
not
so
implemented, but, like, used in our code.
okay, so step one, you're going to go online. You're going to Google CFAR10 Keras. Okay, you're going to find code. And so, since you don't know Keras already, hopefully by reading that code, you'll get some idea of what Keras is all about. Now we're going to talk more about it on Monday. But since the assignment is due on Tuesday morning, I want you to get a head start on this so you're not staying up all night Monday night. Does that make sense? Okay, so the changing the size of the data set has nothing to do with Keras. So you can do that right away. I say nothing to do with, for the most part, nothing to do with. Okay, changing the neural network size does have something to do with Keras. So that may take, maybe you can reserve that part for after our discussion on Monday. You see what I'm saying? But I want you to start reading the assignment because it's kind of wordy, and just start getting an idea for what's going on here so you don't find yourself on Monday in trouble. Okay? Okay. All right. Good luck. Good game. And apparently you shouldn't hang out with Russians on the weekend. That's what Dr. Lova said.
But like any other day of the week, it's fine.
Yeah, I guess so. That's hilarious. Okay, guys, let me know if you have anything.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.